Hey, this is Tom Cavanaugh. Thanks for tuning in to Tomorrow's Legends.
You think you know the story. You've heard it 100 times. But this is not the tale that you know, for this part of the story has yet to be written. Join Flash, Harley, and X-Force 11 as they take the Wave Rider into the near future and check in on some old friends. This is the new adventures of Superman and Lois, as chronicled by Tomorrow's Legends.
Yes, hey, Super Fam of Steel. Well, I am feeling a little shaggy after watching this one tonight, as I'm doing the Movember myself, don't shave thing, letting everything grow. So Lex is definitely showing me up. This is episode 8 of the final season of Superman and Lois, titled Sharp Dressed Man, and I am the underdressed Flash.
And I'm always the underdressed Harley Quinn.
Hello, legends.
Hey, Gideon. All right, you are listening to one of the shows on the Cybercast Network. We are part of a wonderful group of your nerdy, geeky shows. We've got The Mandalore covering all the Star Wars on Disney Plus with the Skeleton Crew coming up soon. Very soon, in fact. 2 weeks away, possibly 3 weeks away. Then you got Dive into DC with Silver Fox and Green Butterfly, and they are busy covering the Penguin series right now, so check them out over there. We've also covered X-Men 97, The Tomorrow People, Jupiter's Legacy, Stargirl, Superman Lois that you're listening to right now, and it all began with The Legends of Tomorrow, our signature main show. Yes, that is us. Let's dive into some news.
We interrupt this podcast for a special report.
Well, first news, I guess we should say, is it is the originals again, the OGs just tonight.
It's just us, in case you haven't figured that out.
Yeah. So, it was really weird, Harley. I was sitting there and, I had X-Force beside me and we were just talking about the show coming up tonight, and all of a sudden his arm starts flapping around like, what the heck's going on? He said, I don't know, I can't control my ring, and whoosh! And he took off and he disappeared.
Oh, man. Well, I hope he finds his way back.
All I heard him say as he was disappearing, he says, I'm not in control! And he flew away. So somebody maybe took over his ring. I don't know what happened.
I don't know. Well, hopefully he makes his way back next week.
Maybe. I don't know. All right, what we got in the news? He managed to get in some notes and stuff before he left. So.
He did, yeah. So, in an interview with IGN, James Gunn says lanterns will start around the same time as the Supergirl movie in the summer of 2026.
Okay.
He added, the truth is, Chris Mundy and Tom King and Damon Lindelof wrote an amazing series, like an incredible series. I'm so excited for people to see this. It's very grounded, very believable, very real. The kind of things that you would never think that would be the truth about a Green Lantern's television series. And very human, adult, and wonderful. And the story they wrote fit a couple of actors who were of these ages, and so that's who they cast. Those were their choices. I totally back them up. I love them.
Interesting. I mean, it's not like they're gonna put out negative promotion or anything about it. Of course, everybody involved is gonna say, "I love this. It looks so good." But I mean, fingers crossed. We have never had anything fully centered around Green Lantern and the story. Yes, we've had the movie, and I didn't mind the movie. I know everybody makes fun of it, but I didn't mind the movie. I thought the movie was just fine, and Ryan Reynolds was just fine. I had fun. It's just a fun, goofy comic book movie. But we never dove into the lore, in the history, and everything that is built around the lanterns. And if you are a comic book reader, it's a vast galaxy of adventure and stories because of where all the rings come from, and there's a different guardian in every section of the galaxy that is all protecting a specific. Like it's massive. It's a massive story that they have created, and if they just dig into a little bit of that for this series, I think it's going to be pretty fascinating, and we're going to have a lot of fun covering it.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that's what I'm excited about. Is I'm a really big sucker for a good origin story. Mm-hmm. They just have so much material to work with. So I'm excited to see how they do it, like what their twist is on it.
Yeah. And I mean, if it ends up being a success, and we build up a couple seasons of this show, what I really, really want to see them do would, if the Flash had his whole Flashpoint story, that was Flash's biggest story in his history. For the Green Lanterns, if they dove into the darkest night and brightest day,
darkest night, yeah,
wow, that would be really cool. But I don't want them to tap that too early. Let's build up a story first before you tackle the biggest event of all time.
Yeah, I would agree. Kind of like how they left the death of Superman until the 4th and unfortunately final season, but they did it very, very, very well. Yeah.
I mean, this would have been, I'm sure, their 7th season storyline.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, 100%. It's how, I'm certain this is how they envisioned ending the entire series, and they had to move it up. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. To remind you guys, in case you didn't listen or hear last week, I'm sure some of you have, because if you didn't hear it, it's too late for you now. So sorry. But
sorry.
Contest time is beginning with this episode. So if you remember, the rules were you have to send in feedback for the last 3 final episodes of Superman and Lois. It has to be decent, legitimate feedback, not just, hey, I want to be in the contest. It's got to be legitimate feedback for all 3 final episodes. Rule number 2 is keep an eye on our Facebook page. I'm going to be posting a picture there of one of my walls in my podcast studio here where I've got some beautiful artwork of all the shows that we've done. There's going to be one of the pictures that isn't quite fully visible, and you're going to have to figure out what show that is from. You're going to have to send that in with one of your feedbacks, and everybody that has sent in all 3 feedbacks and gets the answer correct will be thrown into the draw. We'll spin the wheel, draw your name, and you will win a beautiful 10x14 canvas print of our Superman and Lois poster, which is gorgeous.
It is.
Yeah. So there we go. So we got some feedback in today, and pre-show feedback counts, so everything counts as long as it's feedback. And then the last thing in the news, we brought it up before, we are on the top 100 podcast after shows on Good Pods. And the last time I brought it up, we were number 68. I got a new email this week. We have dropped up or gone up in ranks to number 63.
Hey, okay. So that confirms every time they send us a new email, we've actually climbed the ranks. Very cool.
Yeah. The last bit of news, just to remind everybody that coming up next, once we are done with Superman and Lois. What's that?
I smacked my microphone.
Oh.
Apparently you didn't hear it, so that's good.
I did not hear it.
Sorry.
That's just Harley being Harley, smacking stuff.
Pretty much. Continue.
So once Superman and Lois is done, and then we have Christmas and New Year's and all the holidays, we are going to be coming back at the end of January to begin the Justice League animated series season 1. And we're going to try to fit in season 1, season 2, and possibly season 3 and 4, which is called Justice League Unlimited. So,
well, we have until summer of 26, so I'm pretty sure we have the time. Yeah.
We got time. So look forward to that. Justice League is one of the greatest cartoon series of all time. It's awesome for adults and kids alike. Don't think, oh, cartoons, I'm growing out cartoons. No, this is a great cartoon. It's got adult humor and adult themes. It's a lot of fun.
I'm looking forward to it. Fun fact, I've never watched any of it.
You've never watched it? Oh, you haven't?
I have not.
It'll be good to revisit. I haven't seen it in years, so it'll be good to revisit. All right, well, guess what? We have been revisiting this the last couple of weeks in a row.
Letters lost in the timeline.
Coming in from Comic Geek Kev.
Hey, legends. Comic Geek Kev here. So after listening to your effusive praise of the last episode of Superman and Lois, I went back for a rewatch. And it's a perfectly good episode of TV, better than most of anything else that is on TV these days, and it had some great moments. The ID reveal, the bullet time, fantastic. And the performances are great. Tyler was made for this role. It's really horrible that he's not going to be able to do it for longer. He is just Superman to me now, and Clark. It's very possible the whole Jimmy Olsen thing brought it down for me and just colored it off in general. I did not like him at all. At all. Sorry, Flash, I'll die on this hill. But it's still better than virtually anything else on TV today. Until next time.
Okay.
That's hilarious. I love it. Hey, everyone's got their thing. It's fine. I loved it. I thought it was like literally the best thing I've ever seen on TV. I very rarely give out perfect ratings.
Yeah.
But that's okay. You don't have to love it just because, I did.
But I appreciate that because of listening to us, he felt I should go rewatch that. Maybe see if my view changes. That's pretty cool.
That is very cool. I know.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that you gave it another shot. Were you down on it? I didn't feel like you were down on it. I could go back and look at the notes, I guess.
Yeah, I don't remember. I guess he wasn't super high on it, but not like us anyway.
Yeah. Must have been.
Cool. Well, that's not the only one. We got a voicemail in from our own Silver Vox.
Ooh.
Hey there, Legends team. It is John, a.k.a. the Silver Vox, dropping in from my hotel stay over in Gotham as we, over on Dive into DC, have been taking our way through Max's The Penguin series. But I have been keeping up with Superman and Lois and have gotten myself up to speed. I haven't seen this week's episode yet, but after a regular guy last week, I really had to. I had to take time. Jeff encouraged me to get feedback. He and I were texting back and forth as I was watching the episode, and he really encouraged me to send in feedback, which I wanted to do, but I didn't even quite know how to feel, and I didn't just want to repeat the same stuff as like everybody would say. Like, this was an incredibly beautiful episode, and this really, all the platitudes, all of them. I think it, as I told Jeff, it kind of short-circuited my brain, but in really the best kind of ways. I think this is especially hitting me powerfully because I'm also in the middle of currently watching Smallville. I'm in like the middle of getting close to the end of season 4. And that entire story and everything, literally conceptually that we've known around this character is that the secret is paramount. Like, it is part and parcel of who Clark Kent and Superman are. And to freely give that up it's such a fundamental shift, and the way the writers and producers chose to handle it was in the most touching and vulnerable way that I didn't quite know what to do with it. I think there are I think there are moments in characters' history that are kind of those fulcrum points, is what I'm trying to get across. That I think what they were able to accomplish in this episode was one of those fulcrum points. I mean, this episode from top to bottom of incorporating the Richard Donner history of the Superman character with the helicopter crash and the missiles and everything else, just top notch. We've given this series a hard time because its origins started in Supergirl, but then as they kind of got up on their own 2 feet, they left the Arrowverse behind. And yes, they incorporated Diggle and some other elements, but they were from another universe. And so, anyway, so I think justifiably we who had been with the Arrowverse forever and ever and ever were justifiably a little bit put off by that. But as if they want to tie in, Tyler's Superman with Christopher Reeves, I'm all about that. But to bring in all of that history going all the way back to 1978, and then to say here at this fulcrum point that it's going to be okay for the world to know who I am, it opens up an entire different set of paradigms the whole mind shift of the character just completely changes in so many exciting and potentially fantastic ways. It did. It shocked me, but I walk away going, yeah, this feels incredibly freeing and bright, and the future that's ahead of Jonathan and Jordan, and I don't know. It opens up all the dangers as well, which is what Superman has always suspected, was that once people know anyone in my circle is open up to those dangers, and the boys will be fine, obviously, but that leaves Lois in a precarious situation. Again, there's only 3 episodes left. You guys are covering the third to last on this podcast, so unfortunately, we're just not going to get to explore that whole new paradigm of thinking, and that's so unfortunate, because I'm sure we're going to go back to the regular thought pattern when we get down to David Cornsweat's Superman, of maintaining and keeping the secret at all costs. I don't know. They went there. The producers and the writers, they went there. And I'm so glad they did. It moved me emotionally. It moved me thoughtfully. It moved me mentally and physically. And that's not something you say about episodic television very much. So thank you. Thank you for letting me ramble. Even as I try and put my thoughts together about it, it's difficult. And anyway, I appreciate all of you guys. I can't wait to wrap up the series with you, and hopefully maybe we can all sit down, me and Green Butterfly and the 3 of you, and we can really talk about... I'd love to do this. I guess I'm making a pitch. Really talk about what this series has meant to all of us as a community. So if you're up for that, I'd love it. So take care, guys. Love and appreciate all of you. So see ya.
We love you right back there, Silvervox, and we don't hear enough from you on this show, so it's really, really awesome to get your voice on here. I know you guys are busy doing your own thing, but it's great to have you on here, and yes, I love that idea. We should do that. We did it as a community podcast to wrap up The Flash. Why don't we do it for wrapping up Superman and Lois too?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I'll actually be there because I love this show. yeah,
exactly. So we can maybe we'll just call that now. That'll be one final bonus show after the finale. We can just find the timing for it.
Yeah, we'll have the time. We can delay our plans by a couple of weeks or so.
Yeah. So, just to respond, I want to say thank you for sending in your thoughts, even though you didn't have them fully processed, didn't even know how to put your words together. What that tells me, what I'm hearing in your voice, is that an episode like that hits you so profoundly that you still can't quite understand your thoughts and feelings enough to express, exactly what's going on inside from watching, which, like you said, is crazy for a friggin' 42-minute episode of TV. It's crazy that had that kind of effect on you, and it had that kind of effect on a lot of us. And you and Justina come from a whole different perspective, because you guys covered Supergirl from start to finish, and that show is very near and dear to you guys, and let me take this opportunity to just apologize. We don't mean anything when we're just having fun when we razz on Supergirl once in a while over here, so don't because none of us, I think X-Force is the only one that finished it with you guys. I have yet to finish it and just never watched it, so we just playfully have some fun going back and forth about some of the things that we didn't like about that show, but don't take any don't be offended by that, because we know that's your guys' show, and we're glad to have you on our network and part of this family. So it'd be great to get your guys' perspective from that angle, I think, to talk about this entire Superman legacy, because I know on your Facebook page I was going back and forth with Daryl Washington a little bit. He was really defending huge. Superman wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for Supergirl, and I was kind of razzing him back. Yeah, we don't need you anyway. The show's moved away from it. So we just have a little bit of back and forth. But he's pretty hardcore in his defense. So I think it'd be cool to actually have a good discussion about this show's origins and whether it owes Supergirl a legacy thank you or not, and how we feel about the way it's written itself into its own universe. And because I feel like the Superman that and Lois that we got introduced to in the crossovers with the Supergirl episodes, that was a completely separate and different story. When this show started off, this show wasn't continuing that. This was saying, here are these actors that played that part in that universe, but we're going to now start a show to talk about these characters that are in a different reality playing their version of it. So to me, it is completely separate. And therefore, they don't owe Supergirl anything. This is a separate show. We are watching a what do they call it? An Elseworlds version of Superman. This is not the Superman and Lois from the crossovers or from Supergirl. These are two completely different people. It's just played by the same actors. So that's kind of why I'm looking at it, and why I like to say, we don't owe Supergirl anything. We're just we're doing our own thing over here. And the Diggle that we had on our show, you mentioned Diggle. The Diggle was this universe's Diggle. It wasn't the Diggle from the Arrowverse that we all know and love. That's why he was different. That's why he was a military guy. That's so.
Yeah, I feel like they definitely took it and owned it, from that perspective. And I think if anything, the people that owe Supergirl a thank you are Tyler and Bitsy themselves, because if they weren't originally cast in those roles, the actors, not the characters, but the actors for sure.
Right.
If they weren't originally cast in those roles, they wouldn't have brought them over to the show for sure. It would have been a new cast. And I'm very glad that they did, because I think they're incredibly talented people, and I thought the crossover take was too campy. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad that we didn't get the same universe. I think that's a controversial opinion, but I'm not a Supergirl fan. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I'm glad they didn't take that campy style and bring it to our show, and our show was that campy version of them. I'm glad too.
Yeah. So, I loved what they've been able to do with it and been able to make it their own. So, I think they've done a great job. But, if anybody owes anything to Supergirl, definitely the actors do. Because without that show, they never would have been cast in the first place.
Yeah. So when you look at, we're already pitching our side of the debate here already.
Sorry.
No, but it's great discussion, because when you look at it, this Superman and Lois, they've never even mentioned that Kar exists in this version, so why would they owe them anything? It is just Superman. He's the only powered being that's ever existed on this world. So everybody keeps expecting, where's Supergirl? Why isn't there a picture of her on the mantle? Because she doesn't exist in this world. It's just him. That's all there's ever been. People have to be able to separate. These are two different universes. That's why they're not connected. That's why you'll never hear anything mentioned of Supergirl, because she wasn't here in this version. So
yeah.
That's just
I think a lot of people didn't realize that at first. We didn't realize that at first. They didn't make it clear, but then come season 2, they solidly said, "Hey, this is a different universe."
Yeah. Yep. And then, so I don't know, John, if you listened to our podcast or not. If you heard in regards to Superman's identity, I think we had a pretty good discussion about it last week. When we covered that episode, my only defense, I'm all for what they're doing. My biggest defense is that this show has continually taken the Superman character and story in a direction they've never gone before, and that's what I love about this show so much. Is we are 40 years into Superman's life, and we've never been at this point in his life before. And you would think that after all this time, someone would eventually figure out his identity. I don't think they could keep it secret for his entire lifetime, because he is so in the open. He doesn't wear a full body mask and suit or anything like that, so it should be figured out eventually. And you can only live a double life so long without somebody going, hey, wait a second, and notice something. To me, it's ultra realistic. It makes sense that it would eventually get found out after 40 plus years of him being Superman. It just makes sense. It's a natural progression for this character's storyline this far in to his lifespan that we've never seen before. Every other iteration of Superman, Smallville, the movies, Lois and Clark, everything is from the time he's been a teenager to his 20s. They've never gone into full adulthood. He's never had a family before. He's never been married before. He's never, all of this stuff. So it's it's new territory, and I think, like you said, I think it's brave and bold to take this direction and give it a try. Some fans like it, some fans don't, but to me, it just makes realistic sense.
Yeah, no, I like it. It's been really well done. I mean, you can't argue that. And not that I think John's arguing that, but you know, it's been really well done.
Yeah. So, thanks for sending that in. Excellent thoughts, excellent discussion. We're half an hour into the show and we're only at pre-show feedback.
Uh-oh. That means I will fall asleep in post-show feedback. Apologies.
But this is good. This is great stuff. 3 episodes left, and the show will be gone forever, so why not? Let's have the best discussions we can have about it.
Oh, I'm so sad.
That was great feedback to send in, John. I would love to hear more from you as the show comes to an end, for sure. Let's dive into our ratings and impressions, shall we?
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice.
All right, so somewhere out there in the galactic universe, and I know Jeff's going to ruin my whole story, probably. We'll see what he says. He's got his rating for us.
Well, hello, legends. It's Jeff, X-Force11, and unfortunately I can't be in person tonight, so I thought I'd leave my feedback. So I gave this episode 9 hard times for the super fam of steel. We are in the Empire Strikes Back phase of the season. Seeing the boys have to fight Nat's armor and Superman fighting John Henry's was hard. Now both irons are out of the fight until they can figure things out. Hearing Clark's diagnosis was hard as well. Seeing Tom Cavanaugh in a non-Wells/Reverse Flash role was cool and fun, and it was good to see him back. Love Cavanaugh, he's great. But a question, hopefully, that will be dug into later in the podcast is, was Lex having a panic attack, or is something more going on? I was kind of curious about that. I've kind of gone back and forth in my thinking on that, but I'm interested to see what everybody else has to think. I enjoyed this episode. I am just so sad that we only have 2 more left, and they are doing such a good job. I will say Michael did a good job directing this episode. That's got to be hard to direct an episode where you are playing a pretty big part in it. Sometimes when you are directing, you have a little smaller part in it, but that wasn't the case. So I did enjoy his direction. All right, those are my thoughts. X-Force is out.
Yeah. Good thoughts. Well, he managed to get in a lot of thoughts throughout the episode, so we'll be sure to either kick off with his points or chime in with what he had to say whenever we can.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as for me, I gave this one 9 killer suits. Oh boy, did this have some intense moments. I kept sitting here kind of wondering, like, what is Luther's plan? And just like always, or, you know, perhaps his assistant, this was more her approach. I don't know. Either way, like they kind of went back and forth on that, but they are 10 steps ahead. Either collectively or separately, or their powers combined, they are always 10 steps ahead. So I knew the minute we saw the car crash that the actor in that car was going to be Milton Brainiac. I'm pretty sure we knew the casting, and he looks familiar, although I couldn't tell you his name off the top of my head. But as soon as I saw him, I'm like, that guy, that is Brainiac. So anyways, I go back and forth on this, and we'll definitely get into it. It was a bit weird how we had a car crash allowing him to hijack a suit. The only thing I can think of is maybe he planted something on John Henry. But anyways, again, like, I didn't predict where it would ultimately go, which we'll definitely get into. So Tom Cavanaugh. Oh my gosh, cannot get out of my rating without speaking about Tom Cavanaugh because it's so great to see him. He actually ended up with a little bit bigger of a part than I thought he would. And honestly, it's probably because he's Tom Cavanaugh. So it's still good to see him. But had it been anyone else, I don't think they'd have given the reporter so much to say. But it's Tom, so he chews up the scenery, and it's I can't get enough of it. honestly. I knocked this one down a little because I didn't vibe as much with the kids' storyline, but I did appreciate that it actually shows the fallout from announcing to the world who they are, that they are the children of Supermen and that they are super themselves. So I appreciated that they actually kind of paid that off a little bit.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I did too knock it down a little bit. My initial rating was a 9. And then
I noticed you changed.
And you know why? It's because I started going through the notes and looking at some of the questions that came up, and then I started getting aggressive with some of my replies, and then I realized, oh yeah, there were some parts in this episode that kind of pissed me off, so I can't give it a 9. I've got to drop it down to an 8 because there's a few things I'm a little upset with, and we'll talk about it. So it's 8 talk shows for controversy. Yes, it was great to see Tom back in this world. That's why we led off with his intro this evening. And he's just playing a regular guy, but one he can so easily manipulate into us hating him. It felt like season one Flash and his alter ego hiding behind a friendly facade all over again. Also, really good to see John Henry back. I think he is the best of the supporting characters, and I really want to see more of him part of the show because he can truly be one of Clark's closest friends and allies that he can actually rely on. The suits being taken over by none other than Brainiac was awesome and freaky, especially when John was stuck inside. Lex going full Luthor now too. I did not expect that. I'm talking about the bald and the shaving and everything. I did not know that was coming, so he's going full Lex now. Full Luthor, I should say. Now he's even more intimidating than any other bald Lex we've ever had. Yes, I'm stamping my foot on that one. He's still the best Lex. Yikes. And Superman slowly losing his powers. Can that be true? Is that how they're going to end the story? If he fully gets humanized, will Lex stop going after him, or will that make him an easier target to kill? That's my big questions after this. I don't know what they're going to do. We'll talk about it a little bit later as we go through the show, but my question is, are they really, really going to depower Superman, and that's how the story's going to end? I don't know how I feel about that. We'll get to it.
It'll come up. Don't you worry.
All right, let's get to our talking points.
I'm gonna miss that music.
Oh, it's just too beautiful.
I know. I'm gonna have to listen to it on repeat when we're all done. Okay, and cry, probably. Anyways, so we've got big chunks of storyline, and then I started to break up some scenes in some of them because I thought it was making sense. So we're gonna start with Lex's Legion of Doom.
Okay.
And first, I would like to cover a convenient car crash, because this is where Milton, aka Brainiac, stages an accident that Steel and Starlight have to come and help out with.
Right.
But he uses this to get info about these suits and somehow hack these suits.
That's crazy.
It's very crazy. So, this is actually a completely minor scene. I would almost overlook it and not feel the need to talk about it, except for the fact that their entire plan this episode hinges on so many small moments, including this one. And they're truly, they truly have to know everything that is going on in Lois and Clark's lives, because they have to know everything that's going on. And not only do they have to know that, they have to know and understand them so well that they would know how they would react. I feel like that's the key there. Like Lex and Amanda, both of them, whatever, however you want to look at this partnership, they knew that Clark would ask the Ironses to cover for him because of Lois's appointment. They knew about the appointment. So John Henry and Nat go to the rescue instead of Clark. The only minor nitpick I have here is, why would they assume that John Henry and Nat would go to the rescue and not one of the boys? So I don't know, maybe they had prior knowledge of that somehow. But yeah, I did think overall that was kind of crazy that they orchestrated this entire thing with a car crash.
As you keep saying, Lex is always 10 steps ahead, right? So
yes,
I think for a minute I had to actually go back and find it. I'm like, when did Brainiac set that all up? I couldn't find it in the episode, and then as you guys were talking about it and in your rating, I was like, oh wow, yeah, you're right, that scene was very minor because I couldn't remember it. But as for why the boys wouldn't have showed up, I think if you remember the scene, Nat and John Henry were sitting there, and their little computer, their little space ball that's sitting on the desk, it actually says, it actually informs them that, hey, there's a police call or whatever, that there's been a car crash on Highway 99, blah, 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 blah. You guys should go check it out. I don't think the boys wouldn't know about that. They're tuned in to the police frequencies and the news frequencies, so their computer picked up the information, hey, here's an accident, Superman's tied up, you better go check it out. And there's no way the boys wouldn't get that kind of information, and they wouldn't hear it, obviously, because car crashes are probably happening 1,000 times a minute in the world. So
true, that's a good point. Yeah, it was kind of interesting, because it almost felt like, hey, if Clark were, quote, monitoring, like, this would be on his radar. But anyway, very interesting. All right, so the airing of the grievances. We learn that Lex is fully committed to Amanda's plan. They actually get him on Gordan Godfrey's show, who is our lovely actor Tom Cavanaugh, and he sort of spins everything in his favor, trying to goad Lois ultimately into coming onto the show. So he accuses her of being in league with Pia Mannheim, covering it up, and then challenges her to a debate, which is fascinating. And again, kind of another small thing, but he knew what was about to happen, and we didn't. So, like, we're kind of watching all of this unfold, going like, okay, we think we know what Lois is going to do, but what's she actually going to do, right? And they drew it out for a while before they kind of let all of these dominoes fall. But we slowly see throughout the episode why Lois is going to answer the challenge, and it's actually not for the reasons, at least that I originally thought.
And this is where Lois bugs me, and this is where part of the episode, why I'm marking it down, because I've gotten upset with her a few times over the course of the show for this exact thing. She's not always as smart as we give her the full credit for. She reacts from emotion and doesn't thinks things through at all. Clark was totally right in all of this, because all she cares about is her reputation that Lex is apparently ruining by doing all of this. It's a trap, clearly, and she can't see through her own ego. It's the annoying part of her character on this TV show, and it actually really bugs me. Bitsy plays it so well that she drives me nuts. I'm like, I actually want to smack her. Like, wake up! What is wrong with you? Why? Like, just shut up and listen. And she frustrates me when she is reacting out of emotion, and it makes her look stupid in those times. Drives me crazy. But
I understand how that would drive you crazy, but it's also like a very believable emotion, and like I definitely empathize with the character for sure. I'm like, well, if someone did that to me, I would react exactly the same way. Someone would have to talk me off a ledge. So like, I get it. Yeah, it's funny.
I guess because I'm usually pretty calm under pressure, and I hate when people just start and they have these emotional panic attacks, and they just end up doing something stupid. Like, I'm not like that. I can be very controlled under pressure, and it's always on me to control the situation and not just. It's very frustrating.
I think it definitely depends on the situation for sure.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right. Well, this is what Jeff alluded to in his feedback, and we're calling this Super Lex? Question mark?
Here we go.
I'm Rob Burgundy? I don't know. So they're waiting for the response from Lois when we see something start to happen to Lex. This is where Jeff started to question things. So is Lex sort of seeing and hearing all the crew? Like, he's in his private space, right? And this is kind of almost giving him a panic attack from probably PTSD? Or is it because he feels so out of control, which also a panic attack, but you know, he can't get anything under control, and he's being pushed from all sides, and so he's kind of freaking out about it. Is there something more to it? And Jeff speculates, is he getting powers from, he says, experiments on him using Clark's heart? Which I thought was interesting, an interesting seed to plant. And ultimately, I feel like it's really hard to tell. I think they did a really fantastic job of editing this in an ambiguous way, because everything that Lex is experiencing are symptoms of a panic attack, I think most likely from PTSD. But it also to my opinion, has the appearance of powers manifesting. And I thought that was utterly fascinating. The thought definitely crossed my mind of, oh, wait, like, is he getting powers? Like, what, are they really doing this? And so I think they were intentionally trying to be vague, and they wanted to give just enough to maybe plant that thought in our minds. Give us that question mark. Was this a panic attack or was this something else?
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know what they were trying to show us there. I actually did not think of any mental disorders like PTSD or anything. I strictly felt like he was having powers awakening. And
interesting.
In the viewing, that didn't sit well with me. If that's the case, I think for me, it's too generic and not creative at all, and too coincidentally timed that he starts getting powers as Clark is losing his. That's not a writing choice that I'm going to agree with here, because where is Lex? He's just a human being. Where would he be developing powers from? They haven't shown us that there's metas on this world. Lex has never had natural superpowers. He's always relied on the suit. So I'm not sure of that as a choice to go with the direction for him to suddenly develop powers when there's been no context on this show that can happen in this world for normal human beings to just start developing powers. It's only been with Clark and the Superboys that because they're Kryptonian. So there's been no basis for that, for this to suddenly start and for Lex to be the first one. That's where I'm just not comfortable with this. But man, like, and Lex having PTSD, like, to me, he's too strong of a character, too strong mentally and physically, and just, he's got his, I want to swear and say SHIT, together. He's got it together. I can't buy him struggling with anything and losing and his mind or being overwhelmed by anything. I just don't see that being part of Lex, and especially not this Lex that we've had, the Lex that faced Superman on the street and went toe-to-toe with him in a fist fight. So I'm really, really confused with what they're trying to show us here. I'm going to trust the writers that they're going to do something right with it. I mean, again, this show has been showing us so many things that we've never seen in the Superman story before. If Lex is getting powers, that's also a brand new direction, and I'm going to trust them to write it out properly. I'm just right at this moment, and as I watched it, I didn't like it. So, again, why I'm only giving it an 8. So,
and I get that. I think they were. My position is they're intentionally trying to mislead us on that front.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
Because it was too eerily similar to the boys waking up with powers and starting to hear things and sense things that they're not normally feeling. It just felt too similar. So yeah, it could be a really good misdirect.
That's what I think personally. So we'll see how it plays out next 2 episodes.
Yep.
All right. Well, welcome to the show, Gordan.
Are we just starting now, Jess? Is that?
Yes.
Oh, okay. This is the
everything
beginning of the
that
podcast.
has been happening for the last 51 minutes is a dream.
Oh, okay.
And yeah.
Welcome to the show. This is The Flash.
Welcome to the show. And I'm Harley Quinn. All right. And with that, Gordan welcomes both Lois and Clark to his show, but then subtly kind of puts a little bit of a dig on them for not using him to break the Superman news. Words are not working anymore. But that's okay. Gordan and Lex actually end up accusing Lois of not having any integrity by covering for Superman all these years. Because with all of the secrets, out comes the questionable journalism, shall we say. Mm-hmm. So within all of that, they sit down, they have this conversation. Lex starts off by showing a very one-sided video of Clark fighting him. He says that Clark, Lois, and Lana are the ones who ran him out of town. And in my opinion, this is how the politics are played. Everybody takes their things, their supporting evidence that shows them in the best light, and that's what they present. The other side does the opposite. So, welcome to politics, folks. And here in the U.S., we have had more than enough of that for a lifetime in the last year. But it's okay. Here we are. So with all of this, Lex is proving yet again that he's at least a few steps ahead, because he wasn't 10 steps ahead, but he was at least a few steps ahead because he had a super distraction planned Otherwise, his plan would have completely crumbled. It all hinged on everything with Brainiac and the suits. At first, I actually thought what they were going for was to like just jam the cell phones, to, like not have the call to Elizabeth go through. But it actually turns out that the plan was a little bit more elaborate.
Yeah. But again, this is a part that I am bothered by the apparent, I'm going to say it, stupidity of Clark and Lois. Why would they go into this interview so unplanned and unprepared? They know who they're dealing with, and they know he will bring a bunch of false so-called evidence. Of course the video was edited to make it look one-sided, and yet they just sat there and didn't argue or even counter that it was altered. Like, they didn't even say a thing. They're watching the video and they both just sat there going, great, we look bad. They should have fought that, saying, look, that is not the full thing. That's not what happened. I did this to this. They should have argued and fought, like, actually debate it. And it always bugs me. I hate that with TV shows when something is glaringly, obviously not true. Stand up for yourself and defend yourself. This is the part of writing that drives me crazy. Why would they not have our main characters defend themselves and say, that ain't true. That is false evidence, Lex. You've tampered with it. They said nothing, and that bugs me. That bugs me. My rating might even drop a little more after this discussion. I don't know.
Well, hopefully not. But yeah, I mean, this is tough because when he presents the video that way, it's almost like damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like, no matter what they say, one way or the other, they're going to look bad. So I kind of almost feel like not trying to defend themselves actually worked in their favor. I know that sounds really strange, but it's kind of like they owned what happened as opposed to be like, well, that did happen, but like, here's why. I don't know. It felt like it would have had them backtracking. I feel like that could have potentially been worse, but I don't know. Maybe not.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. They went in unprepared. Like, they could have said, hey, John Henry, get some security footage and let's show it, because it's, like, they could have had their own, actually, Lex, that wasn't what really happened. Here's the real video. And then we could have saw, the countering points.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing on my mind was when in that episode, when we saw that fight, was he's 100% videoing this. Like, this will come back to bite them. And it did. Sure enough.
Yeah.
Again, 10 steps ahead. He baited him. He knew what was going to happen. He banked on it, and he recorded the entire thing for the world to see. And he probably knows Lois gets overly reactional, and he can get her trapped. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. So, puts Lex in a very good light.
That's what makes Lex a good villain for them, is because he can beat them at their own game in some of these areas. So,
for sure. So ultimately, Lois and Lex kind of go back and forth, right? They're kind of trading barbs here and there. They're like, oh, you don't have any evidence. And he's like, oh, well, you don't have any evidence. And it goes back and forth in a really interesting way. And I liked the way they ended up like cutting all of this together and sort of like revealing the little seeds that they had, because I thought it was very masterfully done. They're each accusing the other one with seemingly no evidence. And then they slowly reveal their hands to one another. Lex reveals the video. Lois reveals that she can call Elizabeth. Like, it's a whole thing. And so I thought it was really well done. And Lois almost had him too. Like, if not for the next scene, she would have come out ahead.
Yeah, I think we're going to talk a little bit about that. But that call to Elizabeth really threw Lex off. Like, you could see him. He immediately lost his composure. He immediately was like, oh, crap, I'm about to be made a fool of in front of all of everybody after this whole setup. And that's where maybe he started to panic a little bit.
I agree.
And like you said, if it wasn't for Superman having to leave through the window and cause a mess and distraction, like they had him. I think they were going to turn it around on him there.
Yeah, no, I absolutely think so. Yeah. But yeah, no, they had a super distraction. So, I mean, just before Lois is able to actually get Elizabeth on the phone, like Clark just hears like John Henry. He hears everything that's coming in and like what's going on, because he's actively trying to call out to him and get his attention, and he crashes out the window, which brings everything to a halt. So what we learned was that Milton was in fact able to hack all of the Iron's tech. He took control of the suits, and then he sends one to keep the boys busy and the other to attack Superman. So really interesting. And Jeff did have a question that I kind of agreed with here. Is
and I'm going to counter you both.
Hey, that's good because it's a legitimate question.
Yeah.
It says, so other than the plot needed it, why do we think he put John in the suit? I said, did the plot need it? Because I thought that was completely unnecessary at all. To me, it felt like a plot device more than plot necessity. So I didn't really have a good answer about putting John Henry in the suit. So what do you think?
Let me see if I can ease your mind a little bit, Jess. Sometimes I can do that.
Yes.
So, I don't think it really matters and didn't even make me skip a beat about why. Like, to me, it's like, who cares? Because what it does is it gave us more John Henry in an action scene. That's what matters here. But then think about it. His own suit working against him. That's a personal nightmare for his character. So I don't think it's a plot device at all. His tech is his story. And when it stops listening to him and then attacks him, that's his crutch, like kryptonite is Superman's crutch.
Okay. I can see that.
So to me, it makes sense for John Henry. He relies on his tech for everything. That's his livelihood. That's what gets him a job. That's how he survives. That's how he fights the good fight. That's how he fights evil. For that, all of that, everything that is about him to turn on him and he's lost control, that's, like I said, personal nightmare. It's like Superman running into kryptonite and now he can't fight. Or having red lights and now he can't fight. Like, that's John Henry's story, so.
Yeah, I mean, that's true, because ultimately, like, nothing that he does inside the suit can actually stop what Milton is doing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Superman does his best, I guess. Like, he ends up overloading the suit so that John Henry ultimately gets kicked out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think... Yeah, how did that scene go? Like, No, I don't think... I don't know if it was he kicked him out of it from... Because they were way up in the sky.
So, I think Milton must have ejected him then?
Milton, well, they were way up in the sky. Superman was beating the suit into overdrive where it was going to end up shutting down or burn up or whatever was going to happen. So Milton had to cause a distraction by kicking John Henry out. John Henry's now falling from miles high. Superman has to save him and leave the suit alone. That way the suit doesn't get destroyed and he can call it back and take it over.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, the suit would have been destroyed. Now they lose it and there's no suit. So that's kind of what had to happen there. But to me, it's insane how smart Brainiac is, because and we all know who Brainiac, he's supposed to be the smartest brain in the universe, right? To be able to hack the tech and not let its own creator operate it or break the codes to shut it down, that just kind of gives you a hint as to the mind behind Brainiac and what he's capable of.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's true. Like, he's incredibly smart. He's putting, like, John Henry down at every turn. And the interesting thing is that John Henry and this tech aren't even from our Earth. Like, they're from a parallel universe where things were completely different. So, I mean, Brainiac is, like, that much further above, where, like, John Henry in his universe was, like, well beyond what we were dealing with in our Earth, our universe. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Right.
Yeah. But ultimately, like, Clark loses track of the suit because of his hearing, which is kind of a through line throughout the episode that we'll talk about in a little bit. But his hearing is going bad and he can't find things the same way that he used to. And so...
Yeah. But he needed to save John first. That was the most important
exactly
thing.
Yeah, no, he saves John Henry first, and that's how he ends up losing track of the suit, because he goes up to listen for it and he can't find it.
Yeah.
But Milton ultimately brings it back, saying that he needs to upgrade the suit if Superman is able to overload it, and he basically starts to turn it into a better suit, pun intended.
Totally.
So I feel like at the end of the day, though, we cannot forget that this exact suit was originally built for a Luthor. So I did have a question. Like, do we think Lex actually knows that? Or was this the only super suit available, so it just kind of worked out?
I think they're kind of all the same. I think all these suits were designed for Luther. I think all the suits are same. Like the suits are the same. Natalie's is the only one that's brand new. But I think all of the John Henry suits, I think they're all the same. I think whether they had one or three, I think they built like the prototype and they built a couple other ones. I think they're all the same. So I'm assuming it's just whatever programming you put into it for it to listen to whoever is operating it without question is the difference.
Yeah. Okay.
But can we talk about Milton Brainiac here? I mean, we've been talking about him, but not actually talking about him. Like, what a great casting job. The actor is Nikolai Witschi. He's a Canadian from Vancouver. So right where they were, filming the show in Vancouver there. That guy is able to truly pull off an insane, psycho, super intelligent genius type of character. He is so freaky, and he's going to be even more so if we get more character time with him in these last 2 episodes. Wow, did they cast that guy great. You look at him and you're like, yep, that's a nerdy psycho right there.
No, I agree. I thought the actor did an absolutely fantastic job. And I was definitely, I don't know if creeped out's not quite the right word, but he felt like an evil genius. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he played that part so well. Like I loved the dialogue. I love the way he portrayed it. Like I just thought it was great. So well done.
He obviously doesn't care about killing and hurting people. He just doesn't care.
No.
No?
He very clearly does not care.
At all. I mean, he sent one suit to attack kids, so he doesn't care about that.
Nope.
And he's trying to kill John. Like, yeah, it's insane. So he's nuts, which is crazy. So hopefully he's around for the last 2 episodes as well, and it's something we have to deal with. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. Like, I mean, they've sort of set him up. Everybody, knows who Milton Fine is. So the question is, how do they bring it home?
Yeah, unless they just leave that hanging because it's just too much for the last 2 episodes. Right now, he's just a science geek working for Lex.
Yeah, that's true. And maybe
drop.
This is exactly one of those situations where it's just a name drop. Yeah. So,
yeah. Cool.
Well, then why don't we segue into The Price of Fame, where we're going to talk about the kids and their storyline for a minute.
Okay.
So, John and Jordan are trying to go to the movies with Natalie and Candice, but the paparazzi are waiting in town, so they completely have to change their plans. They can't actually go to the movies. And while I was ultimately not super wild about the storyline, I did appreciate the fallout and what it illustrated. So we definitely needed to see something happen about them revealing the fact of exactly who they are to the world. And I thought this was definitely an appropriate and believable reaction. That you would basically have like immediate groupies and paparazzi and people camped outside your house. Like, totally made sense.
Yeah, that's exactly what would happen in our own world. That's what happens to celebrities and stuff every day, especially when you're not hidden. You're in a small town. You're not hidden behind 50 acres of fenced off security gating. Like it's going to happen, and it just makes sense. The news is broken now across the world, and everybody wants the next story about these guys. So they're going to be tracked. They're going to be followed by paparazzi, and it's going to be something they have to get used to. I mean, yeah, it's not the most exciting part of the story for us to watch, but it would feel weird if they didn't include some of it either, because it is part of the grander story of we have revealed our identities now. How is our lives going to change? So,
no, I totally agree. You've got to do something with it here. So I thought that made a whole lot of sense to include. Well, the other part of this is the whole thing with Candice and John. So ultimately, there's too much pressure for Candice, and so she breaks up with John over a text message. Modern dating rules baffle me. Yes. But anyways, Jordan and Nat actually convince him to go talk with her in person. And so they go on this trip. They end up reconnecting with her, and she decides to unbreak up with him. Magically, because he's there. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. It's part of the teenager story, and we've all been there. We've all gone through the breakups and all that. Like because there's 2 teenage boys, part of the main cast, we have to go through these storylines, and
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's not as entertaining for us anymore because we're now a bunch of old fogies, but
I know.
I mean, there's teenagers watching the show and they probably very much relate to all of that, what's going on and stuff. So that's fine. It's not like it's not put together bad. It's not acted badly. No. It's just, do I need to see more stuff with Candice? Not really, but it's part of the boys' stories and they're going to go through their trials and their heartbreaks and all that kind of stuff. So I'm okay with it. It's just
yeah.
The lesser, it's the third story. It's story C of the episode.
Yeah, I agree. It was definitely a distraction is not a way to put it, but it was a break from all the intensity and all the action for sure.
Yeah.
So ultimately, after they reconcile, everybody decides to have a bonfire. Yay, fun! Such a teenage thing to do. I remember doing many bonfires as a teenager. So.
Yep. And when the cops show up, run!
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they end up talking about the trip they took Sarah on, which was kind of funny, but also like a nice follow-up, just like a good dialogue insert to make sure they didn't like lose that plot and forget about it. Ultimately, though, what happens is the whole bonfire is interrupted because the Starlight suit shows up and starts attacking them.
Yeah, and Natalie's like, what the? Like, that's my suit.
Exactly.
Yeah, and she starts calling out all of her failsafe codes. And like, she had quite a few of them. And
oh, yeah.
For a little bit there, they weren't working, but did you notice one or two of them actually worked? Like the first two or three didn't stop it, and then she said one code, and the suit stopped. And it paused for like 3 seconds. And then it's like it got overridden again. So I felt like, for me, it felt like Brainiac was sitting there on the keyboard badly typing, like, oh my god, she's beating it. Okay, I hacked it again. Like, it's like they were like hackers were having a fight back and forth. So I think that's what happened. Even though we didn't see Brainiac doing it, it felt to me like one of her codes worked, and then he had to continue hacking to override her override, and he eventually won out, and the suit, kept attacking.
See, that's an interesting take. I read that scene slightly differently. I actually read it as he was hearing all the commands and then wanted to give the appearance that it worked to pull the boy's guard down so that he could get the upper hand.
Okay.
Yeah. Either way, it's very interesting.
Yeah. But the boys do eventually have to use the full intensity of their power.
They do. Yeah. No, I mean, it takes both of them to like slow it down, to shut it down. They ultimately combine their heat vision and destroy the suit, which I actually thought was a really interesting touch because where these suits were built, they were built on a world that was at war with multiple supermen. It just was not Superman. It was Supermen, like everywhere. They all had the powers. So I was wondering if these suits were actually built specifically to withstand Superman and his laser vision, and maybe that's why it took both of them to take it down.
Maybe, and I mean, it is Nat's suit that she designed herself, so maybe it wasn't meant to handle 2 heat vision attacks at once. Maybe the boys have something a little bit different because they're half human that,
True.
Changes their power set a little bit. I don't know. This is the first time we've seen Jonathan use his heat vision, is it not? So
yes,
that was also interesting. We got to see him let loose and feel what that felt like. And we know Jordan knows how to use it, and I think this was the fullest intensity he's ever used it at. So I mean, that was a good moment for them to, like we were saying last week, like how cool is it going to be for these super brothers to fly around the world saving people together as a tandem? That'd be really cool. This was the hint of that. Both of them firing their heat vision together to destroy a common enemy. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was very cool and an interesting hint at what a possible future could be like for the two of them. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, as we bring this to a close, there's a few Clark and Lois points we didn't quite get to touch on. So I wanted to bring those up kind of in their own section as we wrap this up.
Okay.
And what they established is that it's the day of this episode is actually Lois's follow-up cancer scan and screen, and she's very nervous about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Clark and the boys, the beginning of the episode, they're there to kind of reassure her that everything's going to be okay. They're there for her, like, no matter what ends up happening. But ultimately, she ends up getting good news that there's no evidence of her disease. So,
which is fine, which is okay. I mean, she went to the best doctor, which was, powered by some science and some, stuff that's a little bit beyond what a normal hospital would have. So if they're able to find a cure for her cancer, get it, or maybe not a cure, but at least get it out of her body, it's gone for now. Maybe it'll turn up again later in life. Who knows? But yeah, it was, that's good. I'm glad. It was good that they brought that story back a little bit. They didn't just, do what they did on Arrow with Felicity. Like, oh yeah, I fixed my back, and they never ever came back to it again. Here, it's like, nope, the cancer's still there. We need to go for your checkup. Let's make sure we got it all. And at least it was good. They kept everything connected that way.
Yeah, and they were very intentional in their research and intentional in the telling of the storyline. Yeah. And I like that just because we've moved into the final season, which is clearly more focused on Clark, they didn't just drop this. They're finishing it in a logical progression. Everything that she's going through is very true to life. So I appreciated that.
Yep.
All right. Well, one of our final points here is that John Henry actually takes Clark over to his workshop and scans him because he can tell that something's off about Clark, something's off about his powers, and he's right. There is not good news to come out of this scan. So we get a little bit of false hope for the episode, not necessarily for a character, but we get good news for Lois, but then we receive bad news for Clark.
Yes.
So it's terminal, but not. I mean, he's Superman. So ultimately, the fact that he has a human heart, the heart will eventually give out, and he will eventually lose his powers, becoming mortal, yes, but going from Kryptonian basically to human.
Oh, he's just a powerless Kryptonian on Earth.
Yeah, like a regular Earth person. So I thought here that this was another way. They said they were going to do something that we'd never seen before, and I think this was another one of those uncharted territories for Superman. We guessed various versions of what they would do, and I think they've done most of what we suspected. They killed him and then brought him back from the dead. They outed him, and now they're going to take away his powers. So it's very interesting.
You're right. This is uncharted territory, and I forgot that they had warned us that they're going to do something they've never done before. And if that is it, then how can you say that's not what it is? They're depowering Superman. That's never been done before, where he actually loses his powers due to health reasons, not due to kryptonite, not due to red sun energy, not due to magic, not to do any other reasons that we've seen him lose his powers temporarily for. So you were spot on the storyline many episodes ago about them depowering Superman. Now, I'm not sure how I feel about that yet. I agree, like I just said, it's a brand new direction for this character, but is that what fans want to see as he ages out? Do you shut down Superman and make him as human as he's ever been? Right now, at this moment, I have a gripe with it. And it's not, my problem isn't with depowering Superman. I'm okay with that. That's an interesting way to take the character as he's in his mid-40s. Let's depower the most powerful being that's ever existed in all of comics. That's something, first you killed him. The death of Superman was something you never thought could ever happen, but now we're going to just take his powers away. So, very interesting here. But where my gripe is that I have trouble buying the science behind it. And I know it's a comic book show. Don't get on me about it. But think about it here. A human heart would it ever even be compatible in a Kryptonian body? Our physiology is so different. Even though we look the same, the physiology is so different. They've already showed us and told us that a Kryptonian heart beats 3 times. Ours only beats twice. Let alone would a human heart be strong enough to power a Kryptonian body, to power a Superman at all. Because a human heart has never had powers before. Superman came from Kryptonians don't have powers. They only have powers when they come here. Because of our yellow sun, because of our gravity, all of that stuff. They only have powers when they come here. So a human heart, first of all, is not strong enough to power a Kryptonian. Plus, the heart that he has is a diseased heart. It's an old heart from a man in his 60s, and it, like I said, it's diseased. So there's just so many things wrong with this heart even working in Superman's body. So I would rather they figure something out at the fortress and get him a proper new Kryptonian heart and return to full strength. That's where I feel right now. I don't think I like this trajectory of depowering him. Because, like I said, the science behind it doesn't make sense to me, even though it's comic book science. A human heart just should not even be able to handle this, even to begin with. So I would be okay if they depower him, the heart dies, something happens, and Superman's out of the picture. But because there's enough Kryptonian DNA, if they go back to the fortress and they now figure out a way to grow a Kryptonian heart, Superman's depowered for a while, they grow a Kryptonian heart, they put a Kryptonian heart back in him, he regains his strength back, boom, Superman comes back for a once and final time and gets to be Superman for the rest of known time. I think that's where I'd like to see the story go. I'm just really not sure about depowering him, and that's the end. That's where they end the story. I don't know how I feel about that until I see how they do it.
I'm actually completely with you. I think the thing they've never done before is outing Superman and that this is a red herring. I don't think Lex destroyed Clark's heart. I think we're going to find out that it's still there. Now, Jeff, earlier, his notes speculated that Lex could potentially be using Clark's heart for some sort of experiment. I definitely don't think that's happening. I also don't think that they actually destroyed his heart. Now,
like I said a long time ago, he stepped on some other heart. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, you brought it up, and I am with you there because, well, if this ultimately happens, I understand, how they have written this. It totally it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense. I agree with you. To begin with, the human heart never should have worked. Yeah. But we're here, we're there. So the fact that they're actually making it affect Clark is significantly more believable since they made it work in the first place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
that part of medical science makes complete sense. It should not be working, so it should be failing. At least it's doing that.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm with you right there. But I'm kind of going back to that. This probably is a little bit of a red herring. So we'll see.
We'll see. Because even the sign, if our hearts only beat twice, boom, boom, and theirs has to beat 3 times, what is this human heart doing, having to beat 3 times now?
That's what I was thinking. Well, wearing out very fast, apparently.
Very fast, and having to power a superhuman body, this heart should explode. It should just be I can't handle it.
I kind of agree, but you know, it's a comic book show, and we had to go there. So
is that a minor nitpick, or is that a big nitpick that people can agree with? I don't know. It's just, it bugs me because this show has been very good about being very smart with its writing and being believable and grounding. And otherwise, like I've complained, DC superheroes are too godlike. They're too impossible to be real. And this show has made them grounded, made Superman feel like it's possible to have a Superman because look at, he's leading a regular life. So I've been very proud of the show and very happy with them making it feel real. And then they go and do something like this that's really far-fetched. So for me,
I think it's somewhere in between, honestly. We're kind of, I don't think it's a minor nitpick, but I don't think it's earth-shattering. It broke the whole
the whole show. No.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So I think it's somewhere in between. It's glaring enough that I think we're all questioning it. Yeah. I think we're questioning it for good reason. They've let the transplant happen because comic book science, but they're addressing that by the fact that it's clearly failing. So where it all ends, I don't know.
Yeah,
we'll see.
See what they do with it. 2 episodes left. I mean, they're running out of time. So
I know. We'll see. So either this is what we're getting, a depowered Superman in the future, or we're getting that heart next week.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, that is it for discussion for tonight. We are going to pause for our ad break, and we'll be right back with favorite scenes.
Shape out and
All right, you get to lead the charge tonight.
All right, I have called this one Debate Debacle.
After which, Lois breaks into my apartment with her other superpowered son.
John didn't even have powers then.
Sure he didn't.
I have to say, Miss Lane, this evidence is quite convincing.
Of course you'd say that. You helped set up this ambush.
Ambush, please. I'm just doing my job as a journalist.
Editorializing isn't being a journalist, it's being a carnival barker.
Ha!
Fortunately, when I make an accusation, I also have something to back it up, or in this case, someone.
Let me guess, your husband.
No. His daughter.
Do it now, Milton. Hurry.
She's in France waiting for my call.
Nice, Lois.
Do not bring Elizabeth into this.
You're the one who drove her away so that you could keep harassing my family.
So, let me get this straight. You're saying that his daughter will confirm this?
Yes.
This is not what I agreed to.
Hear for yourself.
Someone punch it in my suit! I can't control it! What the hell was that?
So I really liked these moments because it's like kind of the end of the debate. You get a little bit of the back and forth between between Lex and between Lois. You know, like one thinks they've got them, then the other thinks they do, and in the end, nobody has anyone because there's a crazy distraction, and it brings the whole thing to a crashing halt. So
yes, yeah,
but it was good.
I mean that, like we were saying in the show, like we can dive into it now a little bit more. She had him at that moment. As soon as she brought up Elizabeth, you saw his composure just fall apart. And he's like, oh crap. And he's looking at Amanda. He's like, what am I going to do here? Like, this is going to completely blow our story apart and ruin everything. And he was panicking there. And well, Amanda panicked. I mean, she barely got 3 feet away, calls Milton, do it now. Like, my God, like everybody could hear you. Like, it's insane.
Yep.
Something really interesting as I was getting the clip for your favorite scene there, because I'm watching the video and pulling the audio from it. Did you like Clark standing there in his farm clothes and he busts through the windows and he's Superman all of a sudden as he goes to attack?
Yep.
So I slowed it down and I went frame by frame to see the transition. And I don't think they're ever going to explain it, but it's interesting because as he punches through the glass, he's in his farm clothes and they just melted away and the blue suit just grew. It just went, like his body just went and it just grew blue, like blue liquid just covered his body as he's busting through the window and all of a sudden his suit was there. And like, I wonder what, because they try to lead us to believe that he's always wearing his suit under all his clothes. Is that what they're trying to tell us? Or does he, I used to think maybe every time he goes to become Superman, we've seen him run down the alley, rip open the shirt. Does he just change at super speed that nobody ever notices because he's going at the speed of light, right? Changing real fast. But in this moment, he's not doing anything. He doesn't do the physical act of ripping off the shirt or anything. He goes through the window in his clothes. His shirt and pants just like melted to nothing. They just disappeared. And the blue suit appears in one seamless motion. So I'm like, we're never going to get an explanation for that, but that's what just happened visually. Clothes melted to dust to nothing, and the blue suit grew. You could watch it grow from like the middle of his back. It just whoosh, and it covered his body in an instant. So I should take some screenshots and post those on our Facebook page. I'm going to write a note about that because it's really cool to look at and going, interesting how they did that, because that sort of explains but doesn't really explain how he changes into Superman every time. It's like the flash ring. It's like the suit coming out of the ring, and it kind of just jumps on him like a second skin as he's starting to run down the road, right? Like it's almost like that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I think it's a little bit of all of the things that you described, right? Like, I mean, it's a little bit of, I mean, maybe he does wear it under his clothes, but then you have the cape. So I don't know, like he definitely moves way faster than the average human being at times. So
yeah,
I don't know. It's just kind of fascinating.
Well, you mentioned the cape. The cape doesn't show up until he's like 10 feet away from the window.
Yeah, well, I honestly think what you're seeing is just the limitations of the CGI.
I get, but I think if you see it, you see the cape from his neck just grow down his back. Like the suit literally grows on him as he's flying away. So that's what I mean. Would they ever explain that or not? It's not like if he's doing a fast change, it should just appear. Boom, boom.
Maybe it's like nanotechnology kind of thing.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's fun. So I will. You know what? I wrote a note down. I will take screen caps and I'll post those on our Facebook page, and you guys can have a look at what I saw. It is really fascinating.
Interesting.
All that from the scene. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going with one I call Impossible News, and this is when John Henry notices Clark isn't doing so well, and takes him to his lab for some tests, and they find out some grave news about what's going on with him physiologically. So it's not cool, it's not fun, but it's shocking to us to hear what's happening to Superman. How can this happen to him? How can he have heart disease? How can he be slowly dying? How can he be slowly getting weaker and losing his abilities? It's Superman. This shouldn't be happening until he's 102 years old.
Mm-hmm.
But it is. And I love it because it gives, like I was saying earlier in the episode, I wanted more of John Henry, because truly when you look at John Henry, he is the only friend Clark can really have. Because of this identity crisis, because of everything, John Henry understands his life and what it takes to lead a double life, what it takes to be a hero, to be a dad, to be, superpowered. John Henry's the only one that's ever going to be able to understand. So I want to see more time of them together becoming the best buddies.
Yeah.
And we're just not going to get it, but that's why I chose this clip. So here is Impossible News.
Everything okay?
I think this is a really bad idea.
I'm not talking about Lois. You didn't react to that break until after it came through the window.
Well, that's because I was reading what Lois had written. I didn't see it till it hit the glass.
You didn't hear it until then either.
My hearing hasn't been the same since I came back.
Why don't you come by my garage and let me run some tests? I might be able to help with your hearing. This isn't like you. Your body isn't healing like it used to.
It's not that bad.
Come here, I want you to see for yourself. There's a lot of damage around your cochlea.
That happened when I was fighting that thing.
You know, some of it, maybe, but the arteries in your inner ear are a lot more narrow than they should be, especially for you.
Okay, so what, the cells in my ear aren't regenerating anymore?
It's more than that. Hearing loss is one of the first signs of heart disease.
But my heart's fine.
Maybe for a 60-year-old like Sam, but not for you. Have you noticed any other changes?
I'm not as strong as I used to be. More tired. This scar on my chest still hasn't healed.
None of that's gonna change. In fact, I think it's probably only gonna get worse. You have a human heart now. Its muscle cells will eventually degenerate, and that's gonna affect your entire body.
Wait, what are you saying?
All of the powers that you have, all of your abilities, they're starting to fade. Maybe not this year or even this decade, but one day you're gonna wake up and you're not gonna be Superman anymore.
You know, hearing that back now, I think that's the way they're going.
Yeah.
You could hear the underlining soundtrack to that.
Oh, yeah.
It was and it was slowly getting more excited that this is the big reveal. This is where we're going with Superman. This is the big shocking moment. Superman's losing his powers.
Yeah.
And that is crazy to me. But what, like I was saying, what I was liking though is in the beginning of that clip, like John Henry's like, "What's wrong with you? Like, you okay?" And Clark's, no, whatever, it's fine. Don't worry about me. And John Henry's like, hello, like, can't pull a wool over my eyes. I know something's wrong with you. And Clark's like, and that's what I mean. They need to be good buddies. He's like, fine, you know. And he just opens up to him. And I'm not strong anymore. I can't hear. My chest isn't healing. I'm not feeling very good. And John Henry's like, well, come on, let me help you out. And that's what I mean. I love John Henry. He's one of my favorite supporting characters. And I need them to be on-screen buddies. So it sucks. It's a powerful moment. It's like if this is what they're meaning to do, a secondary, something we've never done before with Superman.
Yeah.
It is shocking.
It is. I agree. It'll be interesting to see which way they ultimately go with it, or if they do both.
Exactly. All right, we got one more by X-Force. Here's his favorite scene.
Candice wanted me to thank you for being so brave tonight. I'm finally starting to like her. Did something go wrong at your appointment?
All good. No evidence of disease.
Thank God.
But your father has something to tell you.
John Henry ran some tests today, and it seems that even though your grandfather's heart saved my life, it's not completely compatible with my body.
So, what, your heart's just gonna stop working?
Eventually, yeah.
How long do you have?
Maybe as long as your grandfather would have had. Maybe less. But the bigger problem with what we're facing right now is that my powers are starting to diminish.
Diminish how?
Every day I'm getting a little weaker. And it's gonna continue like that. Until one day I won't have any powers. At all.
Yeah. That one's tough. It's really good. It's a very well done scene, but it is tough to listen to.
It's really tough. You know what? All of my griping and complaining earlier in our discussion, they almost kind of give me an answer to that there. Clark does say, apparently my heart isn't fully compatible with my body. So that kind of does solve what I was nitpicking about, that they're admitting that this human heart is not fully compatible, therefore it's not fully working and functioning, and it's now going to start failing. That kind of solves that a little bit. So, yeah.
Yep.
Sad. But this family stuff, it's so funny. Jeff, he either picks a porch scene or he picks a family scene. Those are his go-tos.
Yep. Yeah, he loves those ones.
Yeah. It's always, he likes the family stuff, and that's what it's what that scene is centered on, because the family, they're very strong. Like, gosh, I wish I had family like that. You know, that type of bond, that type of openness, that type of, you know. Yeah. Like,
good.
Yeah, it was good stuff. All right. If you would like to support the show, and we thank everybody that continues to do so, and nobody's sent in any of our Patreon requests. Like we said, if you guys send in an extra special question, we haven't done a Patreon show in a little while. But we do actually have to get together. We have promised that all year long that we're going to do an extra Patreon show, so we got to do that too.
Yeah.
We got to get on it. It's just time consuming, guys. That's all it is. We got busy lives. It's hard to do a little extra stuff, but
we'll get there.
If you'd like to support the show, this is how you do it.
If you'd like to support our podcast, you can do so at our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/tomorrowslegends.
Teardrops rolling down our faces, sitting here longing for the sound of your text. Feedback, it's time for feedback. Whoa, whoa, please feedback and show us some love.
I like playing that one once in a while because it really showcases Dan's singing voice.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean,
That's a good one.
Pretty good, my buddy there. Pretty good singing voice.
Oh, yeah.
Carries a note really well. All right, let's kick it off with an email from Comic Geek Ev.
Good day, legends. As much as I will miss this show, I will not miss dealing with the CW app. Bad interface, slow, shows aren't there at the time they're supposed to be, doesn't pick up from the right point after pausing, just annoying. And after this show, absolutely nothing worth watching.
I've never used the app, so I don't know. Right now, we have the CW as part of our cable package, so I'm able to PVR it, but I also download my TV shows. So either way, I have no trouble with that stuff.
Yeah, the app works better than the website interface. I will say that. Anyway. All right. Opening with some really nice shots of Metropolis, quote unquote. Kind of weird to see Cudlitz without a beard, but he is indeed a sharp-dressed man. Mm-hmm. I assumed that killer suit comment was about the armor, but I guess we'll get there. I appreciate that they didn't just forget Lois's cancer storyline. I remember my mom having her follow-ups after her surgery. It's certainly not a one and done. And I'm glad they are giving it a more realistic portrayal than most shows would.
True.
Yep. Yeah, totally agree. It's definitely not one and done. Finally, the Irons are back. I really hope we've seen the last of the Paparazzi storyline. Let them make a brief cameo in the finale, but other than that, I feel like we've spent enough time there.
Ditto.
Yeah. By the way, obvious setup. Milton may not be the brainiac, but he sure seems to be smart.
Yep.
Tom Cavanaugh in the house. Woot woot. And playing Godfrey? Lex sure knows how to manipulate people, and Godfrey is all too eager to lap it up. I do wish he was playing some version of Wells. Oh, Wells.
Yeah, I know. It'd be funny, but...
Funny, but I'm glad they didn't go there.
Yeah.
Nice to finally see all the kids together again. I'm sure Sam is smiling somewhere. Candice once again shows her true colors. Man, I've never liked her. John deserves better. The fact that they got back together, I'm just going to leave it. 2 more episodes. It is what it is. I love that Lois's article is full of profanity and Clark knew it would be. Reminds me of the Margot Kidder Lois. She was a very non-PC in the first movie. Cool window smashing scene. I'm still a sucker for that kind of stuff. So Clark's hearing hasn't been the same, but last episode the diner door opened and he heard it was Mr. Brigandy. Maybe I missed something in that last episode.
Well, that was only like 15 feet behind him, so...
Yeah.
I mean, anybody would hear it, I guess.
Agreed.
Yeah.
We're going to reveal Clark's identity and depower him. Anywho, this Amanda seems to have a lot of sway over Lex. Might just be man, I've been in prison a long time and this beautiful woman is looking my way. Or maybe there's something else going on? Something that's pushing him to be a little more receptive to her suggestion?
Okay, we didn't talk about that. Why was that in the notes? Amanda and him kissed.
Oh, yeah, because it didn't fit in anywhere, so I took it out.
But let's talk about it now. Like it took a very long time for it to actually happen, because it looked like they were both so tentative and not sure if that's what the other one is really meaning when they say, I know what I want. But
yeah,
they did kiss. They got interrupted, but it did happen. So yeah, how do you feel about that?
I mean, I definitely had her pegged for being in love with him from the jump, so
you called it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely not surprising, but I guess glad they finally acknowledged it.
Is it cheesy? Does it feel natural? Does it feel comfortable? Or were you going, like I don't know. What did you?
It does not feel cheesy, but it also doesn't feel natural, because I think this is a twisted type of love. Like, I mean, it's like it's like she's got a thing for men in prison. Like, it's not like a healthy kind of love, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a manipulated relationship. He holds a position of power over her. Yeah. I think it's just all kinds of unhealthy for many, many reasons.
Well, and she loves power too. But another thing we didn't talk about too was their actual relationship. I mean, he was freaking out, and she actually yelled at him in this episode.
Yeah.
You're like, get it together. You're not walking away from it, because he wanted to quit. She goes, you're not walking away from this. I've done too much. And she was like ordering him around, and he was okay with it. Anybody else he would have killed on the spot.
Yeah.
And he let her talk to him like that.
Yeah, and that's sort of where the question comes up of, you know, like, who was really calling the shots this episode? Like, whose plan was it? Because it was more hers in this episode, but yet we always envisioned Lex as being the one who's so many steps ahead. So it was kind of just like an interesting way to test that, I guess. Okay. All right, I love the Lex Lois interview. She is fierce. But honestly, Clark should have been expecting to have Luther to have been setting him up, but he was angry about Lana. Maybe Lois would have been a little more clear-headed in that situation, but I think if Luther wanted footage of something like that, he's going to get it. Exactly. This whole segment, while so well done, was hard to watch. It's difficult to witness your favorite characters be systematically taken apart, and just when you think they're back on top, bam, we're going to call in Brainiac to make things worse. Very cool scene with the boys in that suit. So well done. I love the show's take on heat vision. The look on Clark's face after he saves John is so hard to watch. Just confusion, anger, maybe some fear. This is Superman, for heaven's sake.
Yeah, that's true.
For a brief moment, I thought Godfrey might not be the putz he's portrayed as in other media. Nope, he's that guy. And I'm sorry, Lex is a billionaire philanthropist? Really?
That word philanthropist always has confused me. I've never understood the full meaning of what you are when you're called that.
Someone who's rich who gives back to the community.
Ah.
Yeah.
Well, he has in a lot of ways, sure.
Yeah.
In a lot of his storylines, he's solved hunger and solved disease and done all kinds of things. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how he gets his money.
Yep, exactly. So what's up with the Jamie Kennedy references? The first one was kind of humorous, but some bits can outlive their moment. This one did, in my opinion.
I missed it. I don't know what he's referring to.
Yeah, the kids kept all referring back to Jamie Kennedy, that it was weird. Anyway, I agree. Okay. That bit outlived its time for me as well.
Okay.
And we circle back to the killer suit. I hope they made it green and purple. Oh man. That last scene at the table. Such great performances by everyone. Heartbreaking. Damn you, DC. We could have all figured out 2 different Superman universes.
Yes. We
no
still
kidding.
Could. Don't even just blame DC. Blame James Gunn. It's all on him.
I know. Amazing episode. Back to form. I'm giving this one 9.5 out of 10 bad prognosis. Sorry, Clark. Until next time, Comic Geek Kev. P.S. I'm not giving up that they find a way to save Clark, but still pass the super mantle to the boys. Wishful thinking alert. Lois somehow convinces Dom Zarro to give up his life and heart for Clark.
Oh.
It's not only...
Yeah, finish.
Yeah, it's not only Kryptonian, but it's supercharged and can't be destroyed. Yeah, I know, but one can dream. Comic Geek Kev.
You just solved it, Kev. All of the talk about how I said they have to depower him and his heart's going to die. They got to find a way to recreate a new Kryptonian heart. There it is. There is the answer.
Yeah.
Either Dom Zarro or Doomsday gives it up, or he dies in the next fight somehow. And they use the heart. That's the answer right there. He gets Bizarro's heart. Wow. That's where it's going. It has to go that way.
It's definitely a fascinating thought and not one that I thought of. So very cool.
Yeah.
Love it.
Wow. That's crazy. But again, you know what? Hit all the social medias and you just dig into James Gunn. Make sure you let him know how much you love Superman and Lois and how much you hate that they're canceling it just because of a Superman movie. And just everybody flood the social media airwaves with how much you love this show, because the more and more it gets in defense of it still staying on the air, maybe something will happen down the road. You never know, but it's up to you guys. You have to put the noise out there for them to hear it.
Yeah. We'll just have to see.
All right, up next is Rick Marshall.
Hey guys, Rick from Orlando with feedback on the most recent Superman and Lois episode. This was an episode with pros and cons for me. There were things I liked about it, but things I really didn't like about it. And I'm not sure where I come down overall on it. The thing I disliked the most is this continuing conceit that Luthor can walk the streets freely, even though he's basically killed two people. He killed Superman and he killed the general, and then he attempted to kill both Jonathan and Jordan. So 4 murders / attempted murders. I think there's got to be evidence of that out there. I just can't believe this notion that there's nothing that would give the police a basis for arresting him. Both Clark and Lois are reliable witnesses. Superman has worked with police departments for years. Lois is a reporter with impeccable reputation. I think the two of them can testify to what they know about what's going on here. I think Jonathan and Jordan can both testify about what they observed. I think there's probably plenty of circumstantial inferential evidence that would be enough to arrest Luthor. They're kind of engaging in this fiction that unless you have an actual eyewitness to crimes, a person can't be arrested. That's not true. You can be arrested on circumstantial evidence. I just feel there's got to be plenty of evidence out there. Even the thing with the lights where he put these red sun lights in, or what I call red kryptonite lights, to deliberately weaken and take away Superman's powers. I mean, that's got to be illegal. First of all, you can't just go out replacing city lights. That's a crime. Might be a misdemeanor, but that's a crime. But doing it in a way to take Superman's powers away, I mean, that's got to be assault, if not battery. So I think there were several crimes committed by Luthor, and I just don't buy this premise that they can't arrest him. I know you'll say he's a billionaire, he's got expensive lawyers and everything, but public opinion counts for something. And I think public opinion has got to be solidly against Luthor and on the side of Superman and Lois. I think if they testified against him, I think it would be very easy for him to be arrested. To me, that's just a plot contrivance. The other thing I didn't like is this talk show host played by Tom Cavanaugh, and he's very good in the role, playing the sleazy talk show host who's trying to stir up public opinion. The only problem is this seems patterned after a character on the TV show The Boys, which is also about superheroes, although a different kind of superheroes. There's a character on that show named Cameron Coleman who's very similar, very sleazy talk show host. And it just seemed evocative of that. It didn't seem like this was an original character or an original concept. And honestly, I don't know what Luthor and Amanda are going for here. Are they really thinking they're going to turn public opinion against Superman and Lois? I just don't think that's likely. I mean, Luthor is known as a criminal. He's known, he has a bad reputation. And they think by exposing the fact that, he got wrongly sent, do you really think the public is going to care that Luthor got wrongly sent to prison for 17, 18 years when they know how many other crimes he has committed. I just don't buy this whole sequence. The other thing that troubled me about this is that Lois apparently had an ace in the hole, which was that she had access to Luther's daughter. But the resolution was going to be, let me get on the phone, I'm going to call Luther's daughter. And I'm thinking, if you were going to have her appear as your witness, why not fly her out there? Why not have her in a hotel room somewhere under lock and key so that she can be guarded? I mean, the way that was handled, it was a little bit odd. And the only thing I can say is that actress, who's also a director, was apparently not available for this episode, which is why we didn't see her. Anyway, I didn't like those aspects of the episode, but there were some very good things in this episode. I thought the battle between the boys and the renegade steel robot, with Natalie trying to shut the robot down with voice commands, and it keeps going, and the boys eventually have to use their combined heat/laser vision on it. I thought that was great sequence. I enjoyed the fact that the boys got to talk to Natalie about their world travels and going to Greece and all that, and I thought that was very amusing. I did have one issue with that, which I'll talk about. But, there are a lot of good things in this episode. It was a lot of fun. Loved the scene at the end where we saw the actual Luther suit. And in fact, I think the whole double bluff of the fact that they had, at the end of the prior episode, Amanda had said, well, I think we're going to have to get you a killer suit. And all of us fans are thinking, oh, we know what that is. That's the Luther power suit. And in the beginning of the episode, we see that the killer suit is actually a suit. It's Luther in a nice three-piece suit he's going to wear on his TV interview. I thought that was a hilarious double bluff that the show pulled kind of over our eyes. But I think at the end, they actually did show us what the actual Luther killer suit will look like. So I thought that was extremely well done. A couple tidbits. At the beginning of the episode, there's an extended sequence where Clark and Lois are going to the hospital to get her scan results. And the thought occurred to me, Clark has X-ray vision. Do you think Lois might have said to Clark at one point, hey, can you just use your X-ray vision to peek inside me, see if you can see the tumor, the cancers, or anything still there? I'm surprised they didn't at least mention that. And Clark might have said, well, no, that wouldn't. I'm not a doctor. Maybe he had reasons for not doing that. But man, isn't that something that would occur to you? I mean, that's his wife. He's seen her without clothes. So he can certainly, I think, look inside her body with her permission to see if the cancer was there. I just thought that's something that if you're married to a superhero, you would ask the superhero to do that for you so you don't have to wait till you get to the hospital. In that conversation the boys were having about Greece and the beaches of Greece, the thought occurred to me, how are these boys legally entering these other countries? Under international law, you're supposed to check in with customs. You're supposed to present a passport. How are they just going to these countries willy-nilly and landing? I think they're violating the law. Now, in the old days of the Superman comics, they did have a plot line where Superman was actually given permission by the United Nations to travel to other countries, especially to deal with emergencies. I mean, after all, if you see a bridge collapsing in China and he's going to race there to try to save people, he doesn't have time to stop in at customs and say, hey, I'm here to save some people. Can you stamp my passport real fast, please? No, he's going to just go and save the people. So Superman got explicit permission in the comics to enter whatever countries he wanted. I don't think the boys have been given that permission. So I kind of think that they're traveling these countries illegally. Another thought that occurred to me is when they're traveling around at super speed, especially with Sarah, how do they keep their clothes from lighting on fire due to friction? In the Flash, it was established that the Speed Force kind of protects the Flash. In the comic books, there was a storyline back in the 80s where I think John Byrne, the author, came up with this Kryptonian aura, where Kryptonians have an aura that protects them when they're going at super speed from their clothes igniting. And maybe Jonathan and Jordan are both half Kryptonian, so that's why they don't have a problem with frictional forces. But what about Sarah? She's a human. They didn't have any protective suit. When they're flying her around at super speed, why isn't she, why are her clothes igniting? And for that matter, how is she able to even catch her breath when they're flying her around at super speed? So these are the kind of things that I would like to have seen covered if they could have actually had that filler episode I was proposing where they would maybe talk about their journeys. The last tidbit I wanted to mention, and this is a good one, Jordan makes some kind of offhand comment about how he's like a Costanza when it comes to Friends. And my gosh, he's talking about George Costanza on Seinfeld. A great reference, especially since Jerry Seinfeld is a known Superman fan. And if you go back and look at the Seinfeld episodes, about half of them at least have overt Superman references. And there's a theory that every Seinfeld episode has some reference to Superman somewhere. But I started thinking that means that Seinfeld, the TV show, exists in this universe, which means that a fictional version of Superman exists in this universe where there's also supposedly a real version of Superman. So that's just the sort of strange thing I think about when I have some free time. Anyway, that's enough for today. I'll talk to you again soon. This is Rick from Orlando. Take care.
That's a funny reference. I was never a Seinfeld fan, but I do know the trivia fact. I believe there's actually a Superman action figure in every episode, and I've noticed it a few times. It's on the shelf in the back of his living room or something. But it does move around. But I'm not going to counter you this time, Rick, on any of your stuff. You seem to get really hung up on the laws and regulations and stuff like that. Are you a lawyer or a policeman maybe in your life? I'm not sure. I don't know the rules. I have no idea, so I can't counter you on all that. I had my own nitpicks this week, so well, it's just funny what certain things get under other people's skin. So kind of fun.
I know, it's definitely fun. I always love to hear the feedback.
Yeah. I think flying Sarah around that's the only. I don't think they're flying her at super speed where they're gonna, because she'd show up in Greece naked, right?
Exactly.
So
it's the constant conundrum. How do you actually fly other people around? Yeah.
So they're probably just going at a nice leisurely pace or something. She'll probably tell them, "I can't see, the wind's too much," and they'll slow down for her or something. I guess.
Something.
But yeah. Other than that, good thoughts. Perry White, he is up next.
Hey fam of Steel, Perry here to talk about Sharp Dressed Man. So I got about 10 takeaways from this episode, and I'll try to get through this fairly swiftly. First, I listened to that scene with Lex trying to shut down the interview about a dozen times, trying to see if I heard 3 heartbeats instead of 2. Because if you remember, Jordan said that a Kryptonian heart beats 3 times to a human's 2 beats. It only sounded like 2, but there was some distortion. My theory is that Lex now has Clark's heart in his chest, but the scene doesn't yet give me confirmation. But if he is using Clark's heart, what does it all mean for Lex? Inquiring minds want to know. Takeaway number 2.
That would be insane.
Even with a smaller budget, we got that awesome FX shot of Superman breaking through the window. That's pretty freaking awesome.
It was.
Takeaway number 3. Speaking of a sharp dressed man, how cool is it to see Superman wearing his wedding ring while suited up? I mean, he had his ring on when he opened his shirt in the previous episode, but this is the first real shot of him as Superman with his wedding ring on, so I'm counting it as a first.
I never noticed. Wow.
Takeaway number 4. Having Cavanaugh play Gordan Godfrey is a stroke of genius. He's charming enough with just enough ooze to pull off glorious Godfrey. I just wish we had more seasons to explore that character and his ties to Darkseid. I mean, is it also possible that Amanda is one of Darkseid's Furies? Dun dun dun.
Whoa.
Takeaway number 5. Speaking of Amanda, I was hoping her motivations were not going to be sort of love-based for Lex. Like I said, I mean, I would have dug it if she was like, an acolyte of Darkseid. Or, I mean, I would have just dug it if her motivations had more to do with her own ambitions. Maybe we'll find out that she's still playing Lex all along, but right now I'm underwhelmed by her motivations. Takeaway number 6, back to Cavanaugh. While he's not playing any of his Flash characters, he did at least mention the Scarlet Speedster during his on-camera confessional there at the end when he said, "Flash, forward." So I'm counting it. It's a crossover. Book it. Takeaway number 7. I still don't know if I'm on board with this show's take on Brainiac. I will give them all the credit and leeway in the world because they have proven that they do origins pretty well. But if it turns out that this Milton find is just some random dude who's really smart, rather than one of the last bastions of Kryptonian tech hell-bent on destroying Superman, I will have been less than whelmed. But like I said, this show has built up a lot of goodwill, but still color me a bit concerned about this version of Brainiac. Takeaway number 8. I don't know why the show is pushing this Candice story so hard. I mean, I get it. It gives Jonathan's character a bit more narrative, right? But I mean, him getting powers is all the narrative I needed for him from this season. I mean, building a story around a relationship that appears as solid as quicksand feels kind of like a waste of everyone's time. Takeaway number 9. It is fantastic news to hear that Lois's cancer treatments are complete. But, would it be beneath Lex to convince Lois's doctors to lie to her? I mean, I wouldn't normally think that, but Amanda did know Lois was going to get her cancer treatment. It seems like that wouldn't be something that you bring up unless there's more to it. I guess we'll find out. Takeaway number 10. Speaking of Lois's prognosis, I'm calling it right now. The final episode will take place at Bazumba's, and they'll be celebrating Lois's good health, Clark's recovery, or retirement, maybe. The birth of Chrissy and Kyle's kid, maybe Lana kicking off a run for Congress, and Jonathan, Jordan, and Natalie deciding to study abroad, starting a young Justice League. Well, that's all I got for this page 1 regular edition episode of Soups and Low. Until next time, I'll be writing headlines, correcting Lois's bad spelling, and convincing Kit to write a day in the life of Superman column for the Daily Planet. Now, who am I making this check out to anyway? Clark Kent of Superman. Great Caesar's Ghost.
Page 1, that's where we ended up with for this one. All right.
Very nice.
I was waiting for it. Good fun points there. I love his breakdown. He's pretty creative with how he breaks things down.
Oh, yeah.
Good
points
stuff
as always.
there. But interesting about, I think the most fascinating point was, could Lex have Superman's heart? Like, they've basically swapped, and that was a hint of what we started seeing. Because they never showed us Lex going into surgery. I guess that would give everything away, but that would be a shock.
I agree.
Interesting. But, God, would they do that in the end of the show? Would they do that?
I don't know.
I mean, because if they do, then that means Superman has to kill Lex to get the heart back so that he can continue living. Is that another direction they've never gone before? Superman kills Lex.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess we'll find out.
All right, one more. Usually Perry is last, but Dad L came in late this week. Here's Dad L.
Hello, Superfam. It's Dad L here. Well, Harley and I were gushing over last week's episode. I don't know how she feels about this one yet, but I am not going to give this one such high marks. Let me get my criticisms out of the way first.
Okay.
John Henry runs these tests on Clark. Did hologram Laura not do all this at the Fortress already? If not, she should have. We should have featured her going over these results with Clark. He should have gone to her when he had these troubles. I know it probably gave John Henry something to do, and the special effects, the little laser lines they had on Clark, it's cheaper than the Fortress special effects. But I just thought this was weird. Why would John Henry have this tech to analyze a Kryptonian physiology? I know he had a human heart and all that, but it would just seem weird to me. And now here's the question I have: does Lex have the results of those tests now, since he took over John's computer and his suit? Does he have those results? If not, then this becomes even weirder to me. But if Lex does now have those results and will use them against Clark, then this would make a lot more sense. So I guess I'm kind of wait and see on this one.
Interesting.
The teenage love features in the episode, I understand. They're trying to show some of the fallout from the secret reveal, but and they had to get Nat away from the lab and the suit to set up that little scene there. But this whole thing just felt very CWE CW-ish to me, so that wasn't my favorite part of the episode. And then finally Lois. Of course the whole debate was a trap. It was a whole setup. Luther's been ahead of them 2 or 3 steps this whole time.
Yep.
And Lewis had the phone a friend in Lex's daughter, but it just felt like a really dumb decision that Lois should have known better, especially at this point, given all that's happened.
Told you.
I just thought there should have been more to this. And, of course, Clark was warning her, but she went ahead and did it anyway and then admitted it was a mistake. I mean, I was screaming at her TVs probably. No, this was a dumb idea.
Yep.
They needed a plan. If they were going to do this, Clark and Lois needed a better plan going in. And finally, nitpick, Tom Cavanaugh, great actor. Of course, I loved him on The Flash. But as a longtime Arrowverse watcher, I just found his presence jarring. It just didn't seem right. And the character was such a cliche, just talk show host. I just found it jarring to see him portraying this character. So it kind of took me out of the episode a little bit. It was just, I don't know, like I said, it was just jarring. And it really, I don't know, it didn't sit well with me. Not Tom Cavanaugh, he's great. Just the character was just such a cliche thing. And finally, here's the good stuff. We got some good action this episode. I loved it. Superman versus the suit. You know, I mentioned this as a possibility a couple weeks ago that Lex could just steal John Henry's suit. And yep, that's what happened. Mm-hmm. And I like the introduction of Milton. And the boys turning up the heat on the other on Nat's suit. Heat vision is my favorite power to see visually. And how they teamed up, got it from both sides. It was a whole Wonder Twin powers activate. I love that sequence. Another thing I noticed, when Superman flew out the window at Lex's place, he had his wedding ring on. You could see it on his left hand. So I thought that was just a nice touch. He no longer has to take off that wedding ring when he goes into Superman mode. So I like that aspect of it. I know this episode had a lot of setup, and I know I've kind of been critical of it, but it's Superman and Lois, so I'm at least going to give it 7.5. I'll get 7.5 stolen steals. Dad-El, last father of Krypton.
And the last feedbacker of this podcast.
Indeed.
Yeah, good thoughts. So yeah, there's a couple of things I mentioned that he was also griping about. So
yeah.
I mean, it's probably a 2-part finale. I would imagine it's the last 2 hours are going to be huge. So maybe this was a little bit of a setup episode.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree. I think this was setting us up for what's to come.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Well, good stuff. You boys, you are all so far in the running for the contest. Got to keep it up for 2 more episodes. All right. If you would like to be part of the show, and we know you would like to also remember, we have SpeakPipe at www.speakpipe.com/Tomorrow's Legends, where you can leave a 90-second voicemail for us. So also check that out. But here's how else you can get on the show.
If you would like to be a part of the show, you can send in your feedback to Tomorrow's Legends Podcast @gmail.com. You can also reach us on Twitter @Tomorrow's Legends. We'd love you to join our Facebook page at facebook.com/groups/Tomorrow's Legends and become part of the community.
Harley's barely hanging on here.
Yeah, we got to chatting and got a little bit of a later start, but that's okay.
That's okay.
All good things.
Yeah.
All good things.
It was a good episode, good discussion. We have a little extra chatter in there for you tonight because we just started rambling about other stuff. So
we sure did.
Yeah. Oh well, makes it fun. Superman's wrapping up, and we won't be able to talk about him again for a long time. So
very true.
Yes, alrighty guys. Well, 2 more episodes left. It's wrapping up quick, so I'm getting anxious, I'm getting sad, I'm getting excited. All of the feels are coming. This one's gonna hit hard when it ends, I think.
It will. It's such a good show. Mm-hmm. It's gonna be a tough one.
It's a tough one to lose, yeah. I'm not looking forward to that part of it, but we will come back with 1 more bonus episode. Thanks to the Silver Fox's brilliant idea. We'll do 1 more roundtable discussion with all of our Cybercast hosts. Maybe we can get Visilanet on too. We'll see. But that's all for this week, guys. We'll see ya. Everybody have a good weekend. This is The Flash signing off.
And this is Harley Quinn. I'm out.
Tomorrow's Legends is not affiliated with CBS, Warner Brothers, HBO, or the CW. We're a fan-made podcast for entertainment purposes only and are part of the Cybercast Network. Be sure to check out our partner shows, The Mandalore and Dive into DC, covering your favorite Star Wars and DC Comics properties. Thanks for listening.
So
Very cool.
I'm wondering, I still want to know who are the other 62 shows ahead of us, because I don't know if a TV show after show is as prevalent as they were when podcasting started. Do you feel like there's a lot more of them out there now, or do you feel like it's kind of teetered off and there's not many of us covering TV shows?
I mean, it's hard to say. I feel like it's probably gone down a little bit, and I also clicked this link to see to see what's listed here.
Mm-hmm.
And it says the top 91 after shows podcast. The first one is called The Geeky Dad After Dark. It's hard to be a geek when you have a house full of little kids. We need to find some time to do adult things. Oh, interesting. Okay.
That's number one?
That's number one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Give us the top three. I'm curious.
The ODPH podcast, Otodoro Parlay Hour. Located in the 607, the ODPH podcast talks a parlay of topics each week, whether it's sports, movies, TV, How is this an after show? It must I don't know what Otodoro Parlay Hour
sounds
like
Japanese
really
anime
means,
or something.
but I mean Spanish, but
oh yeah,
or at least the Otodoro part. Anyway, and then the third one, the Rewatch Recap. So join host Dustin and a special guest host every Monday as they recap a single season of a random TV series. Okay, that's legit an after show podcast.
Okay.
The catch, they've already seen them before. Will the show still hold up? Interesting.
All right, what's 4 and 5 then? Top 5, I'm curious.
Yeah, Recasted 2.0, movie podcast that takes films that are at least 20 years old and gives them a cast made up of modern day actors and actresses. Interesting.
Okay.
And Pink Shade, hosted by Mary Payne Gilbert, has the best breakdowns and takedowns of your favorite reality TV. So it's all about reality TV.
Okay. So that one sounds, number 4 does not sound like a true after show. If they're just talking about movies that are 20 years old, that's not an after show. An after show is watching a TV episode and then podcasting about it. That's what an after show is.
Yeah.
At
least
description.
Yeah, no, number 2, at least they talk about, it says sports, movies, TV, comics, pro wrestling, and more.
Yeah.
So they kind of have, a wide variety of things they talk about. I don't know, it's interesting. So
I'm going to have to scan that and see what else is on there. I mean, they just got free advertising on our show. Come on.
I know, yeah.
That's it. I'm editing this part out.
There's a Star Trek one called Greatest Trek.
Okay.
I don't know. Now I'm just scanning to see if I recognize any of them. There's a Twilight Zone podcast. That's number 18. The one with all the 90s. I feel like I need to listen to that. That's number 19.
Okay. So you might even find some shows in there that you like to listen to.
Yeah. There's a Marvel podcast. There's.
Huh.
Okay. I can't say this because you'd have to cut it. Never mind.
Oh, okay. I know that the Mandalore made it. We're in the top 100 too, but I deleted the email. I forgot where. I'll have to look. We're up there too. I don't think we're. I think we're in the 80s or something. Maybe we're 84 or something in the email they sent us. I'm like, come on. But that one.
After show podcasts?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That surprised me. Oh, Don't Blink. I have heard of that one. That's a Golden Spiral Media one.
That's a Doctor Who one, yeah.
It's Doctor Who, yeah.
Yeah, but Doctor Who's not even on right now, I guess. Well, all right. No, I guess, that makes sense. Doctor Who is in the work. They're reworking it again, so. Well, there you go. There's some useless chatter about our competition.
Yep, sorry. I sort of kept just scrolling on down. Anywho.
So,
okay, there we are. Found us.
Cool. Hey, at least we're in there. If there's other people that are checking out this list, then at least we're, that's one little small bit of discoverability.
Oh, it lists our top 10 best episodes.
Get out of here. What's our number one best episode?
The Flash finale.
Interesting.
Fast. I bet it's by downloads. So the Flash finale, and then the one, It's My Party and I'll Die If I Want to. Why in the world?
That's a Legends episode, right?
No, it's a Flash episode.
Another Flash one.
Season 9, episode 9.
Okay.
Tomorrow People, season 1, episode 2, In Too Deep. Tomorrow People, season 1, episode 12, Sitting Ducks. And one of your X-Men, season 1, episode 4, Motendo and Life Death Part 1.
Okay. What is it basing on what these top 10 episodes are?
Not a clue. There's even reviews in here.
Reviews for our show?
Yes, I
Really?
recognize about half of these people. I know who at least half of them are. I think we've read them before. Interesting, yeah.
Okay, so you clicked
Show more best episodes. Jupiter's Legacy comes up. A lot of more of our recent stuff, which is surprising.
I wonder if it's recent popularity, because like these are newer episodes and they get a huge hit and they're hit more recently.
Yeah, just as Good Pods has curated a list of the 10 best Tomorrow's Legends episode ranked by the number of listens and likes each episode has garnered from our listeners. So it's based on their stuff.
Wait a second, where are these reviews coming from?
From Good Pods, I guess.
Yeah, but
from iTunes, or not iTunes.
Oh yeah, there's
Apple
that one
Podcasts.
bad review. I remember talking about that one bad review.
Oh yeah, I think they have to be pulling directly from Apple Podcasts.
Apple Podcasts, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Is there anything new? Is there any?
No, most of these are very old.
Yeah.
Imported reviews from Apple Podcasts. Well, hey,
Yeah.
maybe I should read. Anyways.
Wow, there's a review from our very beginnings. Martin and Jess. Wow. Great job on your first 5 episodes. That's a long time ago. Good job.
Oh, wow.
Good job, Wonder Twins.
I bet that person doesn't listen anymore.
Yeah. That's interesting. Well, sorry for the ramble, guys. Maybe we'll edit this out. Maybe not. Maybe you guys will have our dedicated listeners will have fun listening to this.
Or maybe you could cut it and shove it at the end. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe with that extra stuff.